What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here. Porcupine Tree Week. And side 3 today, we're going to be talking about Prog. And we don't have a top 5 or anything like that for you like we often do. Today, we're just going to have a bit of a discussion about the popularity of Prog on YouTube, or at least our perceived popularity of Prog on YouTube. We get a lot of requests for Prog bands. Channels that we follow seem to cover a lot of Prog. All the reaction channels react to a lot of Prog stuff. It seems weird for a genre that has had such limited commercial success, at least in the mainstream, that it seems to be thriving at this day and age, 2022, on the internet.
Yeah.
I think you just answered your own question, Jason. It's thriving because nobody else is talking about it anywhere else. It's completely ignored on the radio, completely ignored by magazines like Rolling Stone and Spin and Q and all the cool kid magazines. And, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame barely, just recently started letting in Prog acts. So I think it's just like a buildup of decades and decades of being ignored. And finally, the internet comes along. And the Prog people have, a place to go talk about Prog with all the other Prog nerds.
Prog people, Prog. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just in the type of personality that I think the average Prog fan is. Definitely way more introverted, I would say. So, they're not hanging out at Prog bars or the Prog part of town. They can really only meet, here on the internet because, in order to really get into Prog and Prog albums, I think you need to really have a very kind of, temperate peace of mind and be very methodical. So you're probably not the type that's going to go out for the hustle and bustle of doing shots of Jaeger and listening to Cardi B at the club. It's like, no, you want to take your time. You want to have a little bit of peace and quiet, and you want to really get your thoughts into what's going on. And so that's going to put you on your computer in your house for the most part. And that's where you're going to find the Prog people. You're not going to, go out and bash at the club listening to friggin' King Crimson. I can't remember the last time I heard a King Crimson album at a bar. Let's get a bucket of suds and put on the new friggin' Porcupine Tree album. No, it doesn't work like that. So I think a lot of it has to do with just the nature of the Prog fan as well. Tends to be a bit of a computer nerd. Not a bad thing, but it's true.
I think for a long time, probably our most requested artist was King Crimson. We finally did them. We've done a bunch of the Prog acts now. We've done most of the big ones. We did Genesis when it was just Cram and I. We did Yes. Now we've done Porcupine Tree. And I think the big one now that we haven't done yet, that I think is one of the most requested now, is Jethro Tull, which is probably going to be the next one on the list for us to hit.
Yeah. And the thing with me, why I wouldn't say that Prog is obviously not my favorite subgenre. Rush is my second favorite band of all time. And I love Yes, and I love King Crimson, and I really like most of Genesis stuff. And there's a lot of more obscure Prog acts that I don't really know. I'm a little nervous to dive into them after the Porcupine Tree dive because I kind of am afraid that other than the big ones, kind of feel like it might be a scenario where the cream rises to the top and I've heard the best that Prog has to offer, and I'm sure people are like, oh no, you gotta check out these. Is it a case where if I don't like Porcupine Tree, I'm not gonna like some of these other acts?
Well, I don't think Porcupine Tree quite has the same sound. I think you're safe. There's a big difference, I think, between the legacy Prog acts and the newer stuff. And I don't even know. I've heard very little of the new stuff. I'm a pretty big Yes, Rush, even King Crimson, even like some of the bands like Octopus, even some of the bands like Gentle Giant. They all have some really cool stuff back in the 70s. I get why people don't like the modern Prog nearly as much. It doesn't have that same, mystical, fantastic sound to it. It sounds very modern. Like I think classic prog has like this timelessness to it. It kind of takes you out of the 70s, out of the 60s, out of the, out of the world and into a whole different universe. And the modern stuff just doesn't have that same effect on me. I like a lot of the crazy instrumental parts and the prolific playing and everything like that. But I can definitely see why you and Jason would prefer the old stuff to the Porcupine Tree kind of noodly stuff. And I don't know about Spock's beard and transatlanticism and all those other bands. I've never really gotten into them, so I'm pretty lacking in modern prog as well. But sure, we'll hear all about it when we do Porcupine Tree Week or during this week.
Well, we have heard all about it by the time this video airs.
Yeah, we'll be really sick of all the comments by the time this video comes out.
What are your closing thoughts, Jason? You've been awfully quiet over there. What do you got? Porcupine Tree song stuck in your head or something?
Yeah. I don't know. Prog is an interesting genre for me because I'm in a similar boat with Cram. I've probably heard a little more, especially of the newer modern prog than he has, but I mean, I had a Dream Theater period where I was real into Dream Theater, but other than that, none of it has really, taken me. And even like other stuff, the deeper, not that Gentle Giant is like a super obscure band, but like when you start to peel away the top prog bands and go a little deeper, like we're getting prepared to do a week on 1972 pretty soon on the channel. So I've listened to a couple Gentle Giant records, and I just don't find them as interesting as like the cream of the crop, like Cram says, like those top prog bands that you always hear about. So I don't know. I would never say that I don't like prog or that I'm not a prog fan, but I'm not a prog head. Like I'm not like seeking out a ton of prog. It's not my favorite genre, and I can get into it sometimes, and occasionally there's some that like really connects and that I love. Like some of my favorite records by some of those like top bands. I loved some of King Crimson Week, and even went back to Islands recently and really enjoyed it on a second listen, a little removed from the big week. But yeah, Prague is like a more of an occasional type of thing for me rather than something that I'm like immersed in.
And even though, spoiler alert, I liked Porcupine Tree more than the other two gentlemen on this channel, it's not something I compare like super favorably with the best modern stuff, and definitely not even close to like the best classic prog. Like I like it because I'm not the biggest fan of indie rock and stuff like that when you get into the 2000s, 2010s. So I think Porcupine Tree fills a need, but I don't quite get like the adoration comparing it to like, I mean, if you compared it to Yes or Genesis or, Pink Floyd, or even like the step down, like I'm pretty sure I take Gentle Giant and bands like that over Porcupine Tree as far as like prog acts. So I don't know. We in our Discord we saw a lot of high scores for a bunch of Porcupine Tree albums, and I didn't quite get it, and I don't quite get it now. So I don't know. Maybe we just don't get modern prog that well, but I don't know. I'm a pretty decent sized old prog fan, so I just don't see it comparable at all, though. Not even close. I mean, I can't do it. Can't pretend.
There does seem to be this weird phenomenon, and I've talked about it a long time ago on the channel. I forget which video, but I've noticed that like with a lot of classic rock fans and people that really like Zeppelin and whatever, the mainstream classic rock bands that you hear all the time, the people that were fans of that growing up have trouble making a leap to smaller sounding music with like tinier production. So it seems like for them, as time has gone on, it seems easier for them to appreciate heavier music. So they go from like Zeppelin to liking Sabbath to liking Metallica to liking, And it, like, as you go through the years, the bands that those people gravitate towards seem to be heavier and heavier. So I think a lot of the modern prog kind of appeals to them in that way, in that it's usually pretty heavy.
I'd say that's pretty accurate. Like the amount of, like, my stepdad is in his like early 60s and he loves all that hard rock stuff, and he also really likes like Slipknot and Linkin Park and stuff because it was just heavy when it came out, and that's all they want. That's all these people want, really, just heaviness.
Yeah, it's a lot harder, I think, to make the leap from Zeppelin to like something twee like Bell and Sebastian or something. I don't see them. I don't see that happening super often, which it's also kind of weird though too, because artists like that seem to have more in common with the melodicism of a lot of 60s music more than 70s, but 60s stuff, 60s pop. And so
Simon and Garfunkel in them, and yeah.
It's kind of weird to me that they don't often seem to make that transition. So now we've talked about multiple things. I have no idea what this video is about, but hopefully it was sort of interesting. Drop your thoughts on Prog.
We noodled. That's what we did. Big old bowl of fettuccine. We noodled.
12-minute extended talk solo.
Mm-hmm.
This was the proggiest video we've ever done. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check the video description for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, merch, and Patreon. Check it all out. We'll see you in the next one.